Om Tare Tu Tare Tu Re Soha. Om Tare Tu Tare Tu Re Soha. Om Tare Tu Tare Tu Re Soha. Om Tare Tu Tare.
All right, well, we are pretty far down this journey we've been on in engaging with the Buddhist path. And we're at the part of the text now that refers to the different paths for spiritual awakenings. And last week we had a pretty in-depth portion of the text we covered, going through the stages of the path to enlightenment and really starting to look at it from a very straightforward 4-sentence approach, and then breaking that down, and then looking at the different types of motivations. Is my motivation to just have a good human life, suffer less, have some compassion, live life that's meaningful, valid? Is my motivation to have a good rebirth, not get trapped in some bad rebirth, to put myself in a situation to continue to grow spiritually? Is my motivation to be free of samsara, liberated, become an arhat, attain nirvana? Is my motivation to become a fully and awakened Buddha and to help all others be free of suffering? These 4 types of motivations we discussed, 3 of them are the traditional motivations. And we talked at great length about often our initial motivation is simply, I don't want to suffer so much. Here's a life I have. I'd like to learn how to be a good human being. And I think that's a really valid way to enter any path. So we covered all that, and just wanted to pause, see if anyone had any questions left over from last week before we move to the next portion of the text. So take the traditional sip of hot water, give people a chance. Okay, it looks like we're good. So let's pop up the text. And really at the bottom of this page, as a commentary on the lamp of the path, Tsongkhapa's Lamrim Chenmo followed Atisha's presentation. So remember, Atisha, lamp on the path, is the original teaching. Then Lama Tsongkhapa elaborated on that, gave this wonderful commentary that became the Lamrim Chenmo. And that is within the Gelug tradition of Tibetan Buddhism. Well, there's other commentaries. So now the Sakya tradition also follows Atisha's sequence when it presents abandoning 4 attachments. The first Sakya patriarch, Sachen Kunga Nyingpo, in parting from the 4 clingings, says, if you cling to this life, you are not a Dharma practitioner. If you cling to the 3 realms, that is not renunciation. If you cling to self-interest, you are not a bodhisattva. If grasping arises, this is not the view. Here we begin by freeing ourselves from the 8 worldly concerns that focus on the happiness of only our present life. So these 8 worldly concerns, right? Gain and loss, pain and pleasure, praise and criticism, good reputation, bad reputation. Let go of those. By abandoning them, we will become an actual Dharma practitioner. So just being real clear on that, these 8 worldly concerns, if they're our primary motivation, getting what I want, not losing it, seeking pleasure, avoiding pain, seeking praise instead of criticism, wanting a good reputation, not a bad one. These all have their place, right? Obviously, it's good to get the things you need and try not to lose them. But if we cling to them, if these 8 worldly concerns are our primary motivation, then we'll be trapped in samsara. The Dharma practitioner utilizes such things as gain and loss, not for attachments reasons, but so that they can engage in a path. So these 8 worldly concerns, yeah, to some degree, they have a role to play, right? Food, clothing, shelter. And I enjoy pleasure more than pain. But I'm willing to endure some pain for a good reason. And I'm willing to give up some pleasure for a good reason. And so is our primary motivation one that is guided towards a spiritual development, primary, and then the secondary things around, what do I need for that gain? What do I need to get? And how do I use my life in a way that's meaningful? And there'll be pleasure and pain, there'll be praise, there'll be criticism, but those are not going to affect us much. Those are just side effects, not primary motivations. So that's where we become a Dharma practitioner. Are we chasing worldly concerns? Are we chasing freedom from worldly concerns? We then cultivate renunciation of samsara and the determination to be free from birth in all 3 samsaric realms. Contemplating that all other sentient beings suffer in samsara just as we do, we broaden our perspective and generate the altruistic intention of bodhicitta. So in one case, we become a Dharma practitioner. The second one, renunciation of samsara, is this path of an arhat, of nirvana. And then noting that I'm suffering, noticing that all others are suffering, great compassion arises. And we generate this intention of bodhicitta, great compassion, the desire to free all beings of suffering. To fulfill bodhicitta's aim of attaining full awakening, we must gain the correct view of the 2 truths and abandon all grasping at the 2 extremes of inherent existence and total non-existence by realizing emptiness. In this way, this short verse from the Sakyapas reflects the same approach of 3 ascending levels of motivation for Dharma practice presented by Atisha. So he's just taking a look at, okay, here's the Atisha's presentation, Lama Tsongkhapa, Sakyas, but you're seeing the same types of paths in the sense of relationship to our motivation, our desires. Good human life, free of suffering, full Buddhahood, free all others of suffering. Now, he's going to Theravadan. The 5th century Theravadan master, Buddhaghosa, thought along these same lines when he described inferior, medium, and superior levels of ethical conduct. So these same types of motivations now apply to ethical conduct. That ethical conduct motivated by craving, the purpose of which is to enjoy continued existence, is inferior. And that's just going to keep us trapped. That practiced for the purpose of one's own deliverance is medium. Okay, your own freedom. Nirvana. The virtue of perfections practiced for the deliverance of all sentient beings is superior. So again, these 3 types of motivation. Ethical conduct and other Dharma practices motivated by a desire for a good rebirth in cyclic existence, while virtuous are inferior. Practices done with the wish to liberate ourselves from cyclic existence are excellent, but not supreme. The perfections that are done with the wish to liberate all sentient beings are superior. While initially our motivation may be limited, as our wisdom and compassion expand, our motivation will as well. So this is a point that has come up twice now. It came up last week as well. We start where we're at. And maybe where I'm at is I'd like to suffer less. I'd like to be a better human being. And I can see that these teachings really help cut through the misperceptions that lead to craving and an imprisonment of my whole experience. So I'd like to learn how to not do that. And these days, it's very common. We have modern Western psychology utilizing these same types of teachings in their practice, their therapies. And so totally valid, nothing wrong there. We don't need to think in terms of inferior anything at this point. Just think, well, that's where we're at. And what's being made a point twice now, once the last session, this session, is if we engage in this path, if we start recognizing the truth of ourselves and our experience and see suffering and see freedom, that our motivation grows, it expands. And then it can easily expand into, well, I want to be free of all this. And then it can expand into, I want to free all beings. And so we can go from a beginning point, which I think is where, I think that makes a lot of sense. Certainly where I got here. I just want to be a better person. And then eventually at some point, I don't want anyone to suffer. And I'm fully committed to this path. And that's a much more productive path than, I've had these great teachings. Dalai Lama said this is the way to do it. I'm going to free all sentient beings. That's where I'm at. But maybe I'm not really there. Right? And then it seems really not achievable, right? That's for other people. Other people can do that, not me. So meeting ourselves where we're at, applying these teachings in our life in ways that are meaningful to us, if then it's successful and we relieve some of our suffering and we grow, then let the path unfold and let our motivation grow within the path, rather than just some big faraway goal that seems unattainable and hard for me to connect with. Then it's pretty easy to fail. So I'm going to pause there before we get into the next section of the text, just see if anyone has any thoughts, curiosities, questions, advice, suggestions, corrections, or debate.
Hi, John.
Hey.
It's Kurt. I've noticed in a lot of these teachings there's this seems like absolutist language about, and it's in one of these verses, it just seemed like you had to have done these things before you can start. And meditation's an example also where having achieved meditative quiescence, then I can start doing the next step in it. And it's like, it just seems like, from what I've read about achieving meditative quiescence, it's not a walk in the park. And so I don't know, just wondering about that. Seems like you have to have attained a level of practice that is difficult for me to imagine getting to ever.
Mm-hmm.
In order to just start on these things. Right?
Right.
I don't know if that's I don't think that's I'm probably missing something. I'm hoping I'm missing something. So
No, you're never going to get it, and just might as well give up now. Yeah, of course. But that's the thing that gets in our head, and that's what we want to seek to avoid. Is this is some big, far away, long path, and then doubt comes in, and then it just seems unattainable. And so the absolutes, those are tricky words. The stages of the path just outlined for the vast majority of us. This is the way you would do it, and yeah, it may take many lifetimes. What else are you going to do with your life? You got something better going on. And every journey begins with the first step. So they're not going to pretend that it may not, that it may take, eons and so forth. But having said that, another teaching at Dugdung Ningpa starts in the text that, see, we don't know where we're at. I don't know how many lifetimes I've had. I don't know the merit that has been developed. I don't know the karmic seeds that have ripened. I don't know. And so it actually starts in reverse order in that text, where it says, you can do this little practice and you might be enlightened. And then goes, oh, okay, that didn't work. Okay, well then, do this next stage of practice, and that might do it. And then, you kind of work backwards. And then you might wind up, and if none of those worked, well, let's develop shamatha. Let's develop meditative quiescence, and let's engage in that. And then begin in this path of shamatha, vipassana, and so forth. So, but it started with, you might be right on that bubble. We don't know. We don't know where you're at. And then it works, just the other. Okay, well, that we tested, not there. Okay, let's do this. So the path that gets laid out is also one that has been, general for most of us, and has been tested and has been something that has worked for many. So that's nice. Here's the path. Here's how it works. And it's good for all of us, right? It's not, humans, right? They're humans. Buddha was human. Buddha awakened. All these other Buddhas that have awakened, in all these centuries did some of these things. They became awakened. Some people have more of a spontaneous one. Again, we don't know where we're at. So the blend is that in this very lifetime, if I practice the path of a bodhisattva, my life gets better now. I suffer less. I'm in the path. I basically become a human being with much less suffering, a much greater way to engage in the world. And so there's no downside. But as humans, and we get our minds caught up in, I want to be a Buddha, instead of how about let's start with, that's the motivation. But that starts with being a little better human being, a little nicer to people, taming my mind a bit. And then the journey unfolds. And in that way, we may find that even in 1 year, our life is significantly different. And like that. So we don't have to think in terms of eons. So again, it's not absolute, it's different tools, methods, practices for different people of different capacities, and we let things, evolve. That help, Kurt?
John, can I follow up on that? Because it's sort of, I'm sort of like sitting next to Kurt mentally here with some of his question.
Sure.
I've been thinking a lot lately about neuroplasticity and how mindful practices and meditation change how your brain works, like in day-to-day life. And some of what I was thinking about last week and this week is you can't be motivated by an understanding you haven't accomplished yet. And I feel like some of the things that the higher levels of motivation or aspiration are about are things that, like, I can sit down for a minute and think about and kind of hold in my mental basket. But when I'm out at the supermarket, like it's just too far a stretch, like to kind of be living emptiness or interdependence, like while I'm going about like making copies in the office, or like it's like I appreciate that, but it's still such, like, it's still too big for my brain screen when I'm not just sitting and thinking about some of those higher level pieces. And so I was just thinking about what you said about like a year into the practice, like maybe that mental screen is a little bit bigger even when I'm doing the dishes or whatever. And so, like, is some of your ability to be motivated reflective of how your brain changes over time? And obviously Buddha didn't write about neuroplasticity, but like current science is writing about Buddha to some extent. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So anyway, I was just curious how you would address brain changes in light of some of the progression.
Yeah. So from a Buddhist perspective, it would be the reverse order. As I cultivate my mind and these thoughts and these attitudes, my brain changes. And that's a secondary thing and we can see that right through even cognitive behavioral therapy, things that we do. And the research, where monks, meditate on compassion, then those neural pathways and so forth strengthen. So it's really working with the mind, then the brain changes. It's not that the brain changes and then the mind changes. It's the other way around. And so, but it's exactly that, that as I spend, just think about inputs and outputs. Let's start there. If I've spent most of my life thinking about myself and my self-centeredness and what I want, what I don't like, and who I resent, and what's going on, what's wrong in the world, and that's what I'm continually putting into my mind, well, what's going to come up? Where's my mind going to go? Mostly in those places. So let's say I've been doing that for, 50 years. And then I'm going, okay, well, I want to cultivate compassion and accept, see how I can be of benefit and help others and live in acceptance. And I start putting those attitudes and thoughts within my mind. They're very small in number compared to 50 years of a particular way of being. And so what happens is we purify, right? We cleanse, we purify the negative attitudes, thoughts, and behaviors. And we're adding now this nectar of compassion, loving kindness, and wisdom. And so as we do that over time, they grow. And if we meditate in the morning, as you have been doing, around loving kindness and compassion, maybe I can't hold it all day or anything like that. But over time, that's what I've been planting. That's what's growing. That's what I attend to more. When I spend time in Dharma teachings or, in groups where we're supporting each other in loving kindness, that's what I'm nurturing. That's what I'm growing. And so inputs and outputs and what's going to come out, and how I am in the world is going to have a lot to do with what I'm putting into my mind stream. And doing that consciously, things can shift, the neural pathways change. We can actually, again, feel good about the good that we do, and those little releases, and things get restructured. So there's a journey here, and then the thing to note is that as we use compassion, loving kindness, we're sort of bringing those to mind on purpose. Ultimately, it's going to unify with your ultimate nature, which is its very nature is compassion and loving kindness. That's already there. It doesn't need to be manufactured. It doesn't need to be added. It's our nature. What's obscuring that is our afflicted, self-grasping mind. And so we're using the approach of cultivating this consciously in our samsaric world. But ultimately, it's our nature. It doesn't even need to be manufactured. But we're just so obscured with the imprisonment of the mind, and that brain is wired based on those previous experiences we've had and the way that we've carried ourselves. So as we do this, then the brain changes, and that's the stuff they find with the monks when they see the different parts of the brains that are lit up and so forth, having meditated on compassion, loving kindness, cultivated that within their lives. So that's the beautiful thing. It all changes. And, I've mentioned this a couple of times, but probably some people here haven't heard this. We don't know where we're at. So I came to Buddhism in recovery from addiction and having lived, quite a self-centered life. And by the time I actually got to a point where I thought, yes, this makes sense to me, and I'm sitting in a Buddhist center with a Tibetan teacher, and he's talking about emptiness and the view, I'm like, that sounds way over my head, man. That's for other people. I mean, I didn't even think that was for me. That wasn't even, but I could see how they lived. I could see how he lived. And that's where I can be motivated by something I can't know yet. Like I couldn't even see myself to be like that, but I could see he could. And I could see a Dalai Lama could. And I could see others. And so I made a commitment to go to this center, even though it was Tibetan, and I know a Tibetan, and I, am very elaborate, and I'm pretty simple. And I just, what they said was ethics, ethics. And I practiced ethics. And what happened, for me in a very short period of time, I would meet the Dalai Lama, I would become a Buddhist monk, I would be hosting His Holiness. Like in a span of a few years, I went from a guy wandering into a Buddhist temple to being a monk and hosting His Holiness and training with these great masters, like that. And so things ripened very quickly for me. And now when I read a Dharma text, things that once seemed inconceivable to me just make sense. The text didn't change. What changed is me and my experience and the blessings of being around these wonderful teachers. And it all ripened, unbeknownst to my, journey when I first wandered into a Dharma center. So we really don't know where we're at. And these changes take place. And that's been, I think when I made my full commitment, it was like 2003 is when I took my first vows. 2001, I started going to a Dharma center. So, we're talking 20 years now, right? Something like that. So 20 years later, I'm still, I'm pretty much of a knucklehead. If anyone knows me personally, but I'm a pretty kind one, and much less afflicted than I used to be. And I'd like to think I have a little bit more understanding, certainly than I used to. But regardless of all that, what has changed in my life is a great deal of inner peace, well-being, meaning, purpose, and joy. And that, is a side effect. It's now a side effect. So we're not going to be able to hold that view all the time. But if we touch it a little bit, and we touch it a little bit. What we water grows. And then one day, you're going to notice you'll be in situations that used to be frustrating or fearful, and you are calm and patient. Situations that used to be agitating, and compassion rises instead. And that all happens just because that's what we've been growing now. And with greater understanding, we will not have the cause to have that anger anymore. Anger comes from a cause. Fear comes from a cause. And those causes are within our mind stream. And as we change our mind stream, those causes for certain types of these angers and so forth, they're just not there anymore. Because they're based in misperception anyway. So that's my short answer. Somewhat helpful? I hear emptiness. Still there? Oh, okay, you shook your head, you're muted. Yeah, people keep nodding their heads. And people on a podcast are going to go, yeah, I'm in silence. Okay. Anybody else?
John, can you go back to those first sets of verses that we right at the beginning of your talk?
Yeah, today's, not last week's, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Let's pop it back up. There we go. So,
Clinging to the three realms. What are the three realms?
samsara, basically. We often talk about 6 realms, but in this is even the 3 higher realms of samsara is what I'm gonna say. Now, I'm not an authority on Sakya teaching, so but it is clearly talking about samsara. He explains that even in the next the little commentary there. So 3 realms. We talk about 6 realms of cyclic existence, and that includes the 3 lower realms. But in this reference, often people will cling to the 3 higher realms. I'm not going to cling to a hell realm, right? But I will cling to a human realm. I'll cling to heaven realms, So as we get a great human life, or if we get in these great heavenly realms, then we may cling. So they're talking, I would say that they're only identifying 3 instead of 6 because you would only cling to the 3 higher. Does that make sense?
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you for using your voice and not nodding your head. Awesome. Okay. Well, we got a little bit. Let's dip into the next section of the text. I'm not afraid of that. You afraid? We can do this. Why not? We're here. It's here. Got a little time. Let me move my little thing out of the screen there. Okay. The 4 truths and the 3 levels of practitioners. Okay. Let's roll up our sleeves. Describing the 4 truths from the perspective of the 3 levels of practitioners helps us understand the motivation, aim, and practice of each level. For an initial level person who aspires for a good rebirth and happiness and cyclic existence, true dukkha refers to coarse suffering, especially the misery involved in unfortunate rebirths. The true origins of this dukkha are the 10 non-virtues and the coarse afflictions that motivate them, such as covetousness, malice, and wrong views. True cessation is the temporary freedom from an unfortunate rebirth. The true path to attain that is abandoning 10 non-virtues and engaging in the 10 virtues. So again, this is something that's, it's nice to put in your back pocket, know it, understand it. Virtue is going to be the baseline. If you want a good human rebirth next time around, you want to, even if you don't believe in a rebirth, guess what's going to happen if you engage in virtue? You'll suffer less. And then Buddhist teaching would say, that's how you get a good rebirth. So virtue. Engage in virtue, avoid non-virtue. Foundation. So the cessation, right? The cessation would be that we're not going to go to lower realms. We're going to have a cessation from coarse suffering. This coarse suffering that we experience in our human realm that we're pretty familiar with. All right. For a person of middle capacity who aspires for liberation, true dukkha, right, the suffering, is the 5 aggregates of samsaric being that are taken under the influence of afflictions and karma. True origins are the afflictive obscurations that cause rebirth and cyclic existence. So, the 5 aggregates is what make up our experience, right? Form, feeling, these discriminating factors, these 5 skandhas. That's the word I was looking for, skandhas. Often, now also called aggregates. They make up our experience as being a human. And it's these 5 purified that give freedom from samsara. So the true origins are the afflictive obscurations that cause rebirth. So you'll be in this cyclic existence, you'll always have these 5 contaminated skandhas, aggregates. True cessation is the freedom from all such rebirth, or more precisely, the ultimate nature of the mind that has abandoned all afflictive obscurations by applying true paths. True paths are Arya's realizations held by the wisdom that directly realizes emptiness. So again, nirvana is attained in this path by wisdom, by seeing, realizing, experiencing emptiness for an extended period of time. For a person of advanced capacity who aspires for full awakening, true dukkha is one's own lack of omniscience and the dukkha of all sentient beings. So at this level, I'm human, there's the coarse sufferings, I can be free of that. But I'm still stuck in samsara. Well, I can engage in these true paths, I can attain wisdom, nirvana, be free of that. The suffering at this point, I'm an arhat, I'm in nirvana. But they still have these faint stains of obscurations. That's the dukkha. And the dukkha of all sentient beings, recognizing the suffering of all others. And so, I want to be free of that. I want to help all others. True origins are the cognitive obscurations and the self-centered attitude, the origins of that suffering, that dukkha. True cessation, that which eliminates that, is the cessation of cognitive obscurations at Buddhahood, or more exactly, the ultimate nature of the mind that has abandoned all cognitive obscurations by applying the true path. True paths are Arya's realizations held by the wisdom directly realizing emptiness and bodhicitta. Okay, actually, it's here. Okay, so a lot of technical stuff, right? And so, as I keep wanting to remind people, it's good to have the map, right? Here's the map. So if I have a map, I kind of know where how to get somewhere. I don't need to know, every aspect of the map just yet. But here's the map, here's the framework. And rather than, just be willy-nilly, don't know what exactly practices fit into where and so forth. Bringing it back down to where we are, right? To meeting ourselves in the path and the place that we're at. It's so critical to remember you're already in the path. You've already come a long way. The journey's unfolding. We're already having cracked that door. We already have a rare and precious human birth. We've already met the Dharma. We've already gained the clear wisdom of what does not work. That's incredible. We have gained the wisdom of what does not work. We have tried to be happy and we have suffered. We have tried to do things to, make us have the life we want and have suffered. We get to the Dharma, we become a Dharma practitioner, realizing the truth of suffering, the truth of the prison. And we've gained that. And the door is open, the path is here. We're already through that door. And that's cause for celebration. That is joyful. And instead of thinking about how far we have to go, as I mentioned all the time, just be amazed at how far we've already come. Very few human beings have the life that you have and the conditions having ripened in just this way for you to be in a path of freedom such as this. It's a celebration. No need to be overwhelmed. Maybe a little joyful. Might even skip a little on the path. And that's the way to engage at this stage. And yes, we're talking about these paths. It looks like the next portion of the text, which I have not previewed yet, so is going to also mention that there's more than one approach, right? So again, getting away from absolutism, where there's different approaches, and so it looks like they're going to unpack that a bit. And so, any other thoughts as we get ready to wrap up here? Any comments, things to share, questions? This is all clear, perfectly, right?
John, a little bit off topic, but I finally took your advice to set reminder bells during the day.
Uh-huh.
But the bell rings and then I'm not really sure what to do with it.
Uh-huh.
Maybe, recommend some internal dialogue that I can use when I hear the bell ringing.
Yeah. So when the bell rings, what happens? I didn't quite catch that part.
So when my reminder bell rings, I'm not really sure what to do.
Oh, I
so
see.
Looking for a little bit of maybe advice on some dialogue, internal dialogue.
What? Yeah. So, what I have found pretty helpful is, this little reminder during the day where I'm caught up in, mental activity or whatever I'm doing. And if I were to take a moment to reestablish my connection, my motivation, then it's nice for me to, I like to take 21 breaths. I like to just sit for a moment. For me, 21 breaths is about 1 minute. So you could do 10 breaths, 7 breaths, doesn't matter. But, just stop, breathe, and then with each exhale, let go, let go, exhale, let go. And then in a minute, bring to mind, I generally have a very specific intention in the morning, and then I'll bring that intention to mind. And, and sometimes, it could be one of the 8 verses, for example. One of the 8 verses. And that could be something you're working on, bring that to mind. This morning, mine was maintaining the view. So when I paused, I go back to the view. But you can have like an inspiring little verse. You can, one nice thing to do, is say a few prayers for someone. Pause and, a few medicine Buddha mantras for someone who knows suffering. But something that to, re-engage your mind with the Dharma, with compassion for others. But I like to start with some breath, because that just grounds, brings me back to the moment, and then brings to mind that specific intention that I had. So I used to pick a verse from the 8 verses, and I might do that verse for a week. And I've got many friends now and family and going through medical issues. That's nice to think about them. So those can be very valuable, or even the rare and precious human birth verses. I'll return to those. This opportune physical form is more precious than a wish-fulfilling jewel. The only gain it's like the one. So hard to get, so easily destroyed. It's like a lightning bolt in the sky. Contemplate this, and you will realize all worldly actions are but winnowed chaff at night and day. You must extract some essence of this life. And sitting with that for a minute, helps me, recognize the value of this day that comes only once. So something that's very inspiring for you, something that can redirect, reconnect you with your motivation. And it's nice to start in the morning and carry that kind of thought throughout the day. And then what happens is, as we water that thought, as it nurtures and grows within our mind stream, right, then our brain changes, our things change. Just think about what is it we want to grow. Those are a couple of tips that have worked for me.
I'll let you know how it goes.
Good. Sure, you'll be a bodhisattva in no time. Good stuff. All right. Well, let's go ahead and dedicate the merit that we have all cultivated already here. Pop that up for those of you. Again, it's nice to just take a moment to think about all others. Think about, there's people all over the world with prayers, meditation, people who are seeking to help others. this incredible merit that's being offered by countless others. And as we get ready to dedicate our merit, we can include all of them, all of their merit that we're dedicating for the benefit of all sentient beings and for our own continued spiritual growth. So just taking a moment to get that into our minds. And let's dedicate. Oops, I didn't share it. Hang on one sec, sorry. Okay, there we go. By this merit, may I soon attain the enlightened state of Guru Buddha, that I may be able to liberate all sentient beings from their suffering. May the precious body mind, not yet born, arise and grow. May that born have no decline, but increase forevermore.
Om